One of the interesting things that about that Green New Deal that perplexed me was she was going to basically state that everybody was going to have access to an affordable electric car. Now, as we see right here, we see this is just within my area, within 50 miles. The closest one would be Evanston, which is actually quite a ways away. It's nearly 50 miles, 49.3 miles away. And the most affordable electric car we see is in 2018, which is not even new. We see it is a $30,066 Nissan Leaf SV. Now, frankly, I do not consider that, especially at this design, to be that affordable. And if we're looking at it, not everyone's going to want essentially what's really designed as an economy style car. And that's if this is what we're going to get, this is a lot of money to drop. You're talking cars in that price range should be about half that price when we're looking at gasoline in its comparison. Because if you look at ones that are starting to get into decent sized cars, you start to go and you look at the price and it will go a lot higher. And it gets very, very disturbing when you start seeing the actual price when you get away from this style of car. And we have to keep going for a while because we're up to the Chevy Bolt, which is about $40,000. Yeah, the closest one we're talking is a Jaguar I-Pace S. This is where we're actually getting to a decent sized car. They would actually consider like a mid-sized car. And the lowest price we got for that is the Jaguar I-Pace S at from 2019. That's $74,115. Now, I don't think we're talking very affordable there. And this is what we're looking at. This is from we're getting this from autotrader.com. Even if we go to other sites, I mean, you look at Tesla, which is a major model, and if you look at some of their cars, the Model S, on their pricing, let's see on their pricing. Their pricing is about minimum $75,750. You go back, you're going to see the Model X. This looks a little bit more like a little bit more compact, and that's even more. That's $78,950. The Model 3. This one is going to have a price range of this one's a lot more affordable, but the fact is it's still ranging about $34,850 for a rear-wheel drive. If you want a mid-range battery, if you want a long-range battery, it goes up to $41,850, and the performance all-wheel drive up to $52,850. And the standard battery available in 4 to 6 months. So you have to still wait for these cars to come in. You can't just get your car right when you want it. And then we had the Roadster. This is the new Roadster that has been developed. And they don't even have a price yet. They just have a reserve on it, which will be a lot more money. And what we're talking about is most people are going to go after the Model S, which is right here, which is a mid-sized car. So we're talking nearly $80,000. Now if we compare that with something which is more reasonable, which would be able to give you a mid-sized car with a decent power behind it, which is something like a Mazda 6, you could pretty much go up to the Grand Touring, and it's going to match what we were initially seeing on those electric cars like the Nissan Leaf, I believe it was called, and that's going to be around that $30,000 range, and that's still going to give you 31 miles per gallon, and it might even give you more because as my parents have had Mazdas for several years, and they usually outperform what the actual number shows them. It has a 2.5 liter Skyactiv engine, which is turbocharged, and it has plenty of room and seating. I've seen the things. The things are actually a lot bigger than they look, and the seats are very, very comfortable. The front seats specifically are more like your racing seats, so they actually offer a lot more. And when it comes actually down to the science behind it, when you actually have to make an electric vehicle, compare, and then through its actual whole lifespan, compared to an actual low emission vehicle or an actual low emission vehicle, as with what Mazda produces, you're going to actually notice that if you're concerned about carbon, which, as we discussed before, carbon's not a pollutant, but for those who are concerned about that, you're going to actually notice that those low emission vehicles and extra low emission vehicles actually produce less carbon. Now, when it comes down to the engines are actually going to be more usable and more friendly to be repaired in these combustion engines, and it's a lot easier to deal with them. When it comes to something like an electric one, there you have to have special people actually repair them to begin with, and most often they have to be dropped out and replaced because of the way they're actually functioning. And in some cases they have parts that are actually highly, highly toxic for the environment. They have to actually be incinerated because of what's actually in them. And that's a major problem that we're dealing with. And we also can talk about like Tesla, the fact with them, because of some of the obscurities of Elon Musk, he actually will not build cars in yellow. So if you actually want a yellow car, he won't build you a yellow car just because he has this irrational fear of it. And when it comes to companies, you should have going after what the actual consumer wants. Now, what needs to happen with it is, this is why Mazda actually has in their thing of an actual environmentally friendly motto, and actually develops these cars to be environmentally friendly to begin with. Mind you that Japan has very, very strict environmental standards, a lot more than many other countries. And this is something that many people do not consider. And so when they make these cars, they make them to fit for any region. They're not just set for one region, they're set for global standards. And these are actually set so they can actually be used in any region. And what this means is that when they make a vehicle, they're not just they're not loose standards. While they may make certain engines, such as diesel, that might be accessed out in areas such as Australia, and might not make it to the United States, these are still considered clean diesel engines, such as that are produced by companies like Volkswagen. And this is a major point that needs to be made. And So what their concern is very, very high mileage, very, very good performance for acceleration, and those are the two major points. They're not as concerned about what it impacts on the top speed. Because of the actual way the consumer is going to drive. The consumer is not going to be driving, in most cases, trying to hit a top speed on their vehicles, because of the way they design their vehicles. Their vehicles are not designed for these engines that are going to be hitting 200 miles an hour. So the actual functionality of engines that are going to be designed for massive top speeds and very high top speeds would be irrational. So what they do is they realize that efficiency is more of the game to go. And this is something you're not going to get out of these electric cars unless you spend a lot of money, like with Tesla. And when you get these things with Tesla, you're going to have to wait for a while because most often there's a backlog. And what reduces the price on Tesla is these things such as government subsidies. And the thing with government subsidies is they don't know how long these are going to last. Once these government subsidies are fully pulled, which eventually they're going to have to be because the government debt is right now at $22 trillion, it's not going to last. And it's going to get to the point to where they're going to have to say, sorry, bud, but the game's over. We can't give any money to anybody else, and we have to run a bare bones government. And what's going to happen is those people who want those electric cars are going to be spending a lot of money. Instead of that 70 some odd $1,000, it's probably going to be well over $100,000 for that electric car. And that's going to be a major problem. And that this is just an issue that they have to face. And that this is basically a major issue that they have to face and what they have to go through. And that's basically the issues you're going to find with electric cars. Now, if you like this post, like it, subscribe, and click the bell. Click the share it with all your friends, and make sure they subscribe and share it publicly. And I'll see you guys later on.